Hi. Hello. Well, that's a subtle ring light. This audio isn't on, which is annoying. Anyway, welcome. Okay. It's quite late here at the moment. It is for me anyway. It's been a very busy day, but I preferred to come on. I let some people know. I let the community know, and I preferred to come on today than not at all, because there's been a couple that I've missed because of outside situations that you can't predict. By not predict, so to be honest, one of the biggest ones has been health at times, and also obviously kid stuff comes up, which is automatic. It always comes up. So today I wanted to talk about something that came up in one of our recent sort of roundtable discussions that I had with someone, and we were talking about doing the juggle whilst there's this constant sense that you have to be doing everything at the same time. Wherever you look, whatever platform you're on, there is a stream of consciousness that so and so is an expert in that area. And what makes that really quite difficult is the fact that you're always second guessing and wondering about yourself. Have I done the right thing? Have I not? I'm thinking, because it's kind of quite late, so I'm trying to get the lights up. But you're always thinking, have I done the right thing? Have I pulled up that information? Am I looking at that area? For example, there's one guy that keeps popping up in one of my feeds in the reel who's always talking about SEO, and he says it in such a way which is great for him, but he says it in such a way that he says it in such a way that it's not so great, that it sounds like it's really amazing and actually really hard. But what he says, when you sort of slow the thinking down, what he said is actually really simple. And it's just a traditional way that SEO works. But sometimes he says something that's actually quite interesting, that is quite novel. But the fact is, it's all thrown in together. And of course, I think he's done well in the sense that it's quite generic. So with SEO, you've just got to make sure that everything is working. And that can be quite generic. Wow, that's fantastic for the way that lots of different businesses work. Whereas with, for example, if you're doing social advertising, it's not. Again, how it works and the little things you can tweak in it do, but what you say in it, the kind of layout of what you offer, doesn't. And the same with social media. And to be honest, the same with the way that you run your business is also going to be very different and very unique, because everyone's got, I've got a bit of fluff on my face, it seems. Because everyone's got a little bit of, everyone's got something in their lives that will impact how they run their business, how they run their lives, and how it coincides and how they do their work. AI has been brilliant for giving us the tools to be able to do sort of throw it out there and bring in that reach. And when I say AI, I actually also need to factor in sort of digital communications. So when we're talking with people, when we're talking in, sorry, it's throwing me off the light. The ring light is really annoying. There's no way. I'm like, what? That's the same story there, but that's a whole different story. And if you know, you know. So what was I saying? So basically everyone's got a different way. There's a different sort of way, a life skill that you have, a different, so your routine, your different hours in a day. So your routine will be very different. The way that you categorize your, the way that you categorize your kind of what is in prioritized throughout the day, what's most important, what do you need to get done? Now, for example, I wanted to start this early in the morning when I was all fresh and focused and there wasn't loads of things going on. However, loads of things went on, and then now I'm here and it's right at the end of the day, and I'm actually slower and calmer because of it, because all the other things have been dealt with. And there were much more important things that you just can't put off, such as picking up someone, such as making sure there's X food in the cupboard, or the plumber has been called and that's going to be sorted as of tomorrow, day after. So you can't let stuff go, you know. And that has an impact, and how you run your business then has an impact. Now, jumping back to, we are constantly filtered with so many different forms of media. If most people who have their side project business so far, they're always thinking about it, is always a level where they're trying to get ahead of the game, where they're always trying to win, where they're always trying to work better. Hence why productivity is such a big industry now. Productivity has been, as an industry, has been around for as long as I've known. Like, I've been in digital. I was working predominantly just in marketing, sales, advertising, and doing that for over 20 years. Training for 15, and actually it's probably more now. It's probably training for about 18 or something. But I have also worked, so seeing in digital, obviously, I got into it around the time just after, I think about it, that LinkedIn was 2003. So it's going back a bit, it's a bit embarrassing. But that was around about the time that LinkedIn was really kind of starting to build initially at the first stages. There were other networks out there, one called SoFlo, which I don't know if anyone remembers, but I was on that, and that got sold out, and that was a business network. And there were lots of in-person business networks that spread off of that, and there were other online networks and kind of more private-centered networks as well. So at the beginning of digital and social media, grew from that was productivity, because there was so much to do and so many different things to. And I'm looking at it like a giant machine. Okay, it's a giant machine, and you're a monster with about 10 different arms. And as a business owner, you have to manage all of these different knobs, gauges, dials, all at the same time. And one impacts the other. And if you're not seeing how one impacts the other, then you will be missing out on where there are the blocks and where are there the challenges. And that doesn't mean to say that it's easy, because it's not easy. It is like keeping all the plates up in the air, and that's very, very difficult. So productivity, focus, and organization have become key parts of running a business, and we have overlooked those as skills. Now, AI come into, well, AI, we're now entrenched in it. It's helping us manage the amount that needs to be done. But is it helping us the way that email helped us with communication? It started off as actually really useful. It's true. I remember giving an email at university and thinking, "Oh, what's this? I'm never going to use this. This is ridiculous." And obviously, it's completely overtaken. And now email is almost like a personal categorizing system. It is a form of communication, categorizing. And then we have things like, God, I can never remember what it's called. Stock. You know what I mean? And goodness me, it's late. What's the other one? This is going to bug me. No, I put things in just to see. There it was. It came up. No. Hang on. Basically, we have whole apps, and I can't find them right now. We have whole apps that are designed to help manage our processes and manage our thinking, because there is so much out there. And now, particularly as multiple hundreds of digital businesses of all kinds, shapes, variations are expected to manage all of these Twitters all at the same time. And yes, we've got now these AI machines that can do it at speed, but you still don't know what you're doing and why you're doing. And having those bits set up as well, those kind of connections between those points, to make sure they're working effectively and not burning money or being a waste of time. For example, social media again has changed. It changed probably about 5 years ago, to be honest. I became very disheartened by it because it became an all sales platform as opposed to communication, two-way communication. And of course there is both of that, and it depends upon the size of the organization. Now, if you're someone like Nestle, not the best one to pick, but if you're someone like Nestle or L'Oreal or an organization that would have people who will manage the social media and the communication and will see the power in it, and how it isn't just, social media isn't just about pushing out promoting, it is largely about that two-way communication, which is about brand building, about credibility, about trust. And that has a very human effect on the SEO. It has a very human effect on even accounts, even getting that payment closed and finalized. You know, if you're a plumber and you're having I don't know why I always use plumbers, because it's such a traditional art form that's skilled, a skilled tradesman. And it's something that is also very personal. And if you find someone that you like and that you use, you kind of stick with them. And that's the same with a gardener or with a carpenter or DIY, all of that. Again, some of those price comes in there as well, but it's very much a people orientated skill, and it's very much in person. And interestingly, there's a lot of issues that come up with those, such as things growing out of scope. And you can do a lot now with all the tools and the apps that are out there and available. So I digress. I'm thinking of that because a friend I talked through, and we talked about one of his biggest issues was when they go around and have that conversation. And it is very personal. You're talking to that person around their house, around their garden, going, oh, I need this, I need that, blah, blah. And you have that conversation with that person. They go off, put it together, give you a quote gets done, go through the process. Then you've got a bottleneck and there's an issue. And nowhere at any point really is it's them against you. It becomes that. And then the person, the tradesman becomes the person who has to provide the solution or find the solution. Whereas when you're working in a digital, possibly even e-commerce format, it's very straightforward. It is, you bought the product, it didn't work, there's room to wiggle and negotiate. For example, if you worked with someone like Salesforce, there's individuals that you work with to get the right product of what you need, the right fit. And you say, this is working, this isn't working. But at the same time, there's a very clear line of where it works, where it doesn't. And within tradesmen, there isn't. Now, I was chatting to a friend about that. There are apps and tools that you can use to build that up and use them to not only for legal liabilities. So, for example, Otter is a really good one for that, where you use it to take down verbatim of what was discussed and what was agreed. And then you get that bit signed off. And you also have the audio as confirmation of what was done. It actually makes that route quicker. But obviously people who are like plumbers aren't really sitting around waiting to do that. And then it's kind of admin tech, laptop work afterwards, which is a nuisance, which kind of creates another overhead. So again, these are different levels of what we're doing. But again, I digress, but all of these are different variations of the models. Productivity organizations have been born out of a need because we now have so many things that a business needs to manage. Digital, this is why I've moved from digital to business directly. Digital has got it's kind of fingers in all the pies, basically. It travels through to the conversation that's happened within a social network, to the admin team, to the invoicing accounts team, to again, for years and years and years I've been saying PR and social should be working hand in hand, but sometimes they were often completely different agencies that thought very differently. Now there's a much bigger understanding about it, which is great, but these things are different. And not just different. These things have changed rapidly, and largely they've changed because of the way that consumer habits have changed. So the expectation, if, for example, you had an Amazon business where you did drop shipping purely, and maybe you tied that in with Shopify platform and did something that was kind of like, if you got all the technical back end in place and made your product very, very simple, and then you can set the things in motion. Great. That actually, the setup takes time. It's not always a given you'll get sales, but there's ways around it. It does once the setup is done. So you need time and money and super organization. And within those, without panicking and knowing the process of doing it and knowing that when you do that, something over here doesn't break. That's where things fall flat. And that's often when people are saying, yeah, you can have a 6-figure business and blah, blah, blah. They're talking about all up here. Sell. But then actually it doesn't stand the test of time. And it's like you've got to restart all over again. So that makes things quite tricky. So we have so much noise out there telling us you should be doing this, you should be doing that. I don't know if anyone here is a parent, but my God, we're all terrible parents if we were to listen to all the gazillion different ways out there to parent. We are all doing exercise wrong. Oh, by the way, you're eating the wrong things. It's just insane. To put this into a daily context, and this is not obviously for everyone, this is a woman's perspective. One week I remember I got my hair done, and then I think I got a facial done or my nails done or something. As you can see, it's not something, none of it's a regular occurrence. This was quite a treat, but both times they were like, oh yeah, you've got to totally do like a mask, like mask your hair really dry, because I bleach it, obviously. Like it's really dry. Oh, you've got to do your nails and you've got to put the gel on and you've got to do the oil. What's it? The oil 3 times a day. And I was listening to people, I think they said my skin, oh, it's such a terrible, you've got to do this every week. And I was like, what? Realistically, who has time for this? Whilst working, whilst doing the washing, getting the dinner ready, sorting out the kids, running to and from, blah, blah. Who has time for all of that? You only really have time if you make that your thing. So you kind of, mornings, you could drop off the kids, which some people do. Drop off your kids, go over, grab a coffee, get your nails done. You can't, by the way, you cannot get your hair done and your nails done in the same day before you then pick up the kids, just for the record. I suppose it depends. You could make it work. It depends what you're getting, but I couldn't. Which is why partly I'm always hesitant. I leave it to the last minute with the hair because I'm like, when am I going to fit that in? It's like a day. It's not quite a day. That's an over exaggeration. It's a nice thing to do, but then you rush off to think rather than having that time to enjoy the moment. Again, that's another thing to factor in is, wow, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could go to a hairdresser's, go through that whole experience and then be like, oh, make sure you've organized drinks that evening or a cup of tea or something, meet with a friend afterwards to kind of seal the deal, as it were, to seal that experience. That bit's left up to the customer. But it's in the same context as if you, say, bought a product and then they went, aha, we're going to add this as a freebie to you, just to really seal in the customer service. It's something to think about. I don't know. My point is the fact there's so many things of experts. Now, these are not just experts. A lot of these are lived experiences, and I also don't want to dismiss it because I know that a lot of them are actually very, very good, and the lived experiences are very valid, but they are not all relevant to you. And it is very difficult to see the wood through the trees. The reason being is the fact that we don't. The wood through the trees, there's so many different ways that you can save money. There's so many different ways that you can market your business. There are ways that work, and there are ways that once you've set X, Y, and Z up, you then need to push with this, and you have to have the stabilizers ready. There's a lot of businesses that can start before they have said product, program, the deliverables there. There's a lot of businesses that can do that beforehand, but there's a lot of businesses that can't. And knowing which one is so difficult. You do need, you do need to have a coach, or you do need to have a process, a process of elimination to go, am I going the right way? No, I'm not. Okay, am I going the right way? No, I'm not. And it's knowing which one to go on to. I decided a while back that I could talk about certain things on here that would be helpful, such as the new SGO or SGE. And it is, and whilst it is helpful to know, it's very difficult because every business or every project is different, it's unique. For example, I worked with an organization that, actually one thing I did when I really, really enjoyed, I worked at a film festival, and I offered advice to budding filmmakers. And the principle is the fact that the media we have these days can be so very creative. So building your community and groundswell, if you're a creative medium and you're trying to do that, there are so many cool things you can do, particularly on a budget. It's almost like you can ignite the end user's imagination and get them to create that user-generated content. And then you can utilize that, maybe tie in, then you start to create a plan with tie in with sponsors, tie in with potential influencers, maybe ones who want to grow, maybe you can negotiate a deal and grow their audience. But this is, again, everything is so unique. The possibilities are endless. It depends upon your model and what you offer. So back to the very beginning of, don't be discerning with the information that you receive. If anything, we are given, I was going to say, if anything, basically, you go out. I should finish that sentence. You go out, you find your information. You go to the places and the portals that work for you, that work on your time, that are easy for you to understand. Don't assume that the information that you're receiving is correct or right. It might be, and it might be a great tidbit. Don't get me wrong, I like some of the stuff I've got about gardening has been super helpful. But it's kind of more eroding your confidence than it is building you up. And that's where it becomes a danger. Well, we're already, to be honest, we're already there, right? We're there. It's already too much. There's so much going on. You've probably noticed, if you live in a main city, you've probably noticed that the metro itself has dwindled. That used to be the place where you went and got your shit stories. Excuse my language. But when you get your shit stories, again, excuse my language, when you get your shit stories, all right, we're just going to have to go with that. That's, at least it was lighthearted, and it was on the train, and you could, on the train, the tube, whatever, you could drop it and leave it and go. But breaking it down, when you have a ream of consciousness, where particularly the reels, the shorts, I'm trying to think, if there's any other names for them, I can't remember, mostly reels on multiple different platforms, TikToks, the whole lot. That kind of soundbite information, there's no way of processing. So let's go into this a little bit. There's no way of processing that information to create those ideas, to create something new for yourself. For example, they've already proven that within AI, the problem with AI is your brain is literally not creating those synapses. It's not creating those moments where you're like, I see how that connects there. And it's building your brain matter. It's stopping that from happening. By accessing the bite-sized data and information, this is not to be mistaken with the bite-sized training that I offer. The bite-sized training I offer was all about, it certainly wasn't bite-sized. It was hour to 2 hour lengths. And if it was an intense course, it would be over multiple days. It was saying the intensity of the learning is better to do it maybe 2-3 hour chunks. We did it with 4 hours, 5 hours. It was too much unless you can do it in person, but you're still with the activities. There's a lot. It was just too much information for it to take on board for it to be successful. when I say successful, to like go in. If you give it, 2-3 hours, you had time to chew it over. We had time to put it together, and we got to each day, we'd create something, and then it moves on to the next thing, create something, move on to the next thing. And so you're really not just learning, you're then embedding that information in. Okay, so bite size in this context, 30 seconds, 1 minute. And it's going blah, 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 blah. And the intensity of you jumping from, this is going to tell a lot more about me, jumping from gardening to parenting, to exercise, to organization, So as a woman of a certain age, in a certain time, there are certain topics that will come up and be repetitive and bracket you based on who you are. And that is your funnel. You will receive very different results, and it will be based on who they think you are. And it brackets in your time. And it doesn't create your thinking. It speeds up your thinking to almost shorten that process. So you need to be much more discerning in the kind of information you get. So when you're looking for advice, go to the same YouTuber that you go to find hubs, find actual sources of information. If you're into the arts, for example, cutting edge stuff, I was going to say Days Confused is still around. I think it is. There's a lot of excellent magazines out there that are interesting. Go for something where you don't know if it's going to build, but it will feed some sort of information back. Slow your thinking down to allow those ideas to create. You have to have that room, that thinking room, essentially. So I wanted to also bring up, like, when you start to, actually, I wanted to keep this, not really talk mainly about the point. When you start to be able to break your thinking down and see your path of what is, you need like a checkbox of what works and what doesn't work. And then you can start to see the gaps in, and particularly the bottlenecks. And often it might be a piece of technology that's not working, that isn't matching up. It might be a person that, although they might have the skills, their attitude towards embracing a new turn can be the bottleneck to everyone's progress, which I have worked with quite a few businesses that have had one or two people like that. And they have been the death of that business. And it's very frustrating because you've got that sense of loyalty as well with them, which is really important. But that works both ways. It's got to work both ways. It's not just a paycheck, because if that person doesn't shift or move, there is no paycheck for everyone. It's a much bigger situation. Anyway, so too many people, there could be too many people that you're relying on. That could be the bottleneck. Or relying all on the one person to solve that problem. Now, if them doing everything, how can you relieve some of that pressure to make that process? You need to create room. There needs to be room for that thinking, and don't rely on short soundbite information to fill those gaps. It will actually work against you and not save you money in the end. So go to reliable sources that will give you a process and pattern to help you understand and pull in the type of information that you need to do. And when I say pull in the type of information, whether you need to restructure your invoicing, which app might be better to connect to here, is that process path working? Get someone to be a dummy consumer and to test the process. Go on that customer journey. Actually get, I'd say, 5 friends, but very, very specifically pick these individuals to try and test out your process, your route to purchase. And how simple is it? Anyway, there's loads in there, and I hope that has been helpful, and I will see you next time. Thank you.